Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's study. And we're going to try to put these signs on a line. But before we do, let's have a word of prayer. Dear Father in heaven, we invite your Spirit's presence into our midst. We're so grateful for the time that we have each morning to open your word and to receive light for our feet. And we're thankful for the people that participate, that watch these videos, that contemplate these things. And we're thankful, Lord, for the work that you're doing throughout the earth, on the hearts of your followers, and those that you are drawing to you through others. And so we just pray, Lord, that we can participate in this work. We ask that your Holy Spirit can direct our minds, and that you can direct our conversations as we seek to be corrected and further understand your word. Be with us now through thy Spirit, we pray and ask in Jesus' name. Okay, so yesterday we backtracked a little bit. We looked at chapter 9, and so just to understand what we're doing here is we had in chapter 9, this is going to be Saul looking for the asses, and we take this as a symbol of Islam. And he's going to pass through these different places and not find them. But then they're going to look for the seer, which is Samuel. And Samuel's going to meet up with Saul and tell him that he's going to be king. In chapter 10, Saul is going to be anointed. And we have these signs that are given by Samuel to Saul, which are going to be fulfilled literally that day, just shortly after he's given the signs. But we believe that the signs have prophetic significance for later. Now, the thing that we've struggled with is there's so many symbols. I mean, we could draw chapter 9 on a line as well, but we're not going to do that right now. We're try to deal with these signs and drawing them on a line. So just a quick summary of those. We know that the first sign is he's going to find 2 men by Rachel's sepulchre in the border of Benjamin at Zelzah, and they will say unto the asses which thou wentest to seek are found. So we know that there's a sign that has to do with the finding of these asses, which we believe is Islam. So somehow that's connected with the understanding of Islam. Where we're going to place that, we're not sure yet. And also thy father has left the care of the asses and sorroweth for you, saying, what shall I do for my son? Now, and then thou shalt go forward from thence, and you're going to come to the plain of Tabor, and there shall meet 3 men going up to God to Bethel, one carrying 3 kids, another carrying 3 loaves of bread, and another carrying a bottle of wine. Now, so one of the things about these signs is we're not really sure, do they overlap or are they successive if we're going to put them on a line? We haven't decided that yet. But we can see obviously the 3 being a symbol of the 3 angels' messages. I mean, that's pretty common when we have the number 3. But also we're going to see later that there's going to be these 3,000 men. And so it says in verse 4 here, and they shall salute thee and give thee 2 loaves of bread, which thou shalt receive of their hands. And so we're saying that the 2 loaves represents the 2,000 men that Saul is going to have, and the 1,000 men is just the loaf of bread that's not given to Saul. At least that was the idea. Whether that's correct or not, we still don't know. And then we have, of course, the company of prophets that he's going to meet on the hill of God, where is the garrison of the Philistines. And when he comes near the city, he shall meet this company of prophets playing these musical instruments. And then God's Spirit will come upon Saul, and he's going to prophesy. He's going to be turned into another man. And these signs are given that he can, for an occasion to serve thee, that is to help thee understand that God is with thee. And then verse 8, which is kind of the one that we struggled with quite a bit. So we kind of take this as a fourth sign, but this one is going to relate to more of a test. And that it says, thou shalt go down before me to Gilgal, and behold, I will come unto thee to offer burnt offerings, to sacrifice sacrifices of peace offerings. 7 days shalt thou tarry till I come to thee and show thee what thou shalt do. So those things are going to be fulfilled. And we know, of course, in chapter 13, verse 8, that these 7 days appears to be the set time that Samuel here is referring to. So how we're going to deal with that, putting that on the line, we're not quite sure. Any thoughts on this? Just this quick review. Anything that jumps out at people that they think we should pay attention to? Okay, so
all of this with these signs
will
be interesting when we begin placing it onto a line to see exactly where it could be said that the signs fit, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So, and there's different ways that I've thought about it. As I mentioned, they could be that these signs all are repeated in large, showing different aspects. That is, there could be a line for each of the signs. So we're not really sure about that. So we're going to kind of have to address that. Now, the real key to me is that these signs are given that he may know that the Lord is with him. And one of the things that happened after July 18 is this rejection that God was actually leading us in what we were doing. Now, the fact that people make mistakes doesn't mean that God is not leading them, right? We saw this with William Miller. Did William Miller have everything correct?
No, he didn't. But he had the majority of things correct.
Yeah, and the things that God showed him were correct, right? He had, been given the commencement of the prophetic periods, specifically the 2520, the 2300 days, and the 1335. Those are the primary prophetic periods that Miller used. We see that in Great Controversy, page number. Anyway, she's going to quote Miller's memoirs, page 74. And she's going to quote one paragraph, almost word for word. She's going to cut out one thing, and then she's going to paraphrase the second paragraph. But anyway, when he's talking about the prophetic periods, there's 3 of them, and those are the 3 that he has the commencement of the chain of truth for. Anyway, the thing is, William Miller made mistakes. One that he made was believing that the earth was the sanctuary that was going to be cleansed at the end of the 2300 days. Now, we know that that was wrong, and he should have seen that it was wrong. And when we had our disappointment in July 18th, 2020, we could recognize that the date was correct, but that event was not going to occur on that date. Doesn't mean it was wrong to warn people in Nashville regarding Ellen White's vision about the destruction of Nashville by a fireball. But, and to fully understand why we had Nashville, there's reasons that they're obviously connected. So it's not like it's unconnected. But just to say that we would know the date in which it occurred would be wrong, right? So obviously we made some mistakes in that regard. So how do we do this? That's what I'm not quite sure about. Now here we said that the darkness was the lost asses of chapter 9. Now this line with Saul being anointed, we would have to place at 9/11. Right, so we already kind of had decided that. So we take this and we say that's 9/11, and then how we're going to deal with these signs, I'm still not sure. So one of the things that I would say is that when we're dealing with these, there's going to be these 3. Okay, well, first we got the two he's going to meet these two men. Where is it here? So two men by Rachel's sepulcher. Now, I look, often at these numbers. So it's going to be in the border of Benjamin at Zelzah, and Zelzah's number, the Hebrew number is 6766, and that could be measured as a period of days. So we've done this lots of times before. If you count from 9/11, since we're starting at 9/11 when Saul's anointed and these signs are given, and you count 6,766 days, it brings you to March 21st. Now, what's March 2020? March 21st, 2020. So what is the symbol of March 21st, 2020? What's March 21st? Everybody knows what that symbolizes.
I've forgotten.
Okay, how about 321? Does that remind anybody of anything?
So from the chat, just pointing out Sunday law.
Yeah, so represents the Sunday law.
Constantine's Sunday law.
Just from the year 321, right? So we know Constantine's Sunday law is actually on March 7th, 321, but the symbol 321, we can relate to that year. We also can relate it to, it's the spring equinox, right? So it relates to the calendar. And we know from the spring equinox to the autumnal equinox is 187 days inclusive, right? Which is one of the reasons I believe that they have from the first day of the first month to the 10th day of the seventh month, always 187 inclusive days, because it's lining up the spring equinox and the fall equinox. And that's one of the reasons I believe that the Jews were not counting using the barley harvest to determine the start of the year, that they were actually using the spring equinox. So the first new moon that's sighted after the spring equinox would be the first day of the first month. Historically, that seems to pan out. There's no evidence that they ever used the barley harvest. This was an argument later developed in a conflict between the rabbinic Jews and the Karaite Jews over the calendar. So a lot of the misinformation regarding the calendars is just basically, infighting within Judaism. And a lot of people take these things seriously as if they're real. But when you do the research, you start to find out that they made up a lot of facts in order to win arguments. So, but anyway, that's just a whole other point. Now, the interesting thing about March 21st, 2020 is it's 119 days before July 18, 2020. So would that be significance that we have this 11-9 symbol? So as we're counting from 9/11, the 6766, the Hebrew number for Zelzah, it brings us to March 21st, which is a symbol of 321, the Sunday law symbol. But more significantly, it's 11-9 days to July 18. Okay, that makes sense?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Now it's going to be, so how we're going to do this, I don't know. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to write Zelzah, because that's the next place, or that's the first place that he's going to go to. Now, of course, we have lots of things there, Rachel's sepulcher as well, but Zelzah, which is H, what did I say the number was? 6766, yeah. Makes sense. Okay, and probably have to make a footnote of that or something, but for now we'll just put that there. And so there's lots of symbols. Obviously, the asses are going to be found, right? So maybe I'll put that here. So the two men are going to be telling him, okay. Now, I don't know, like we're just putting these things here, working this out. We'll try to see what makes sense here. So, because remember, we're saying that this earlier history is the history under the first angel's message. So when we have the anointing of Saul, we're going to have these progression of dates or events, which we put on a line. Now, so let me see what else here. Now, even this part about the father hath left the care of the asses and sorroweth for you, saying, what shall I do for my son? Now, we saw that in chapter 9 as well, is that is where, Saul is kind of thinking, they're going to start worrying about me. My dad's going to start worrying about me pretty soon because they've been gone 3 days and still haven't, found the asses. So this, I don't know what this is. I know it's significant. Any ideas of what this would refer to? What is the father symbolizing here and his concern for Saul?
Is it symbolizing God's concern for him?
Yeah, okay. How would we put that in our line? What is it representing in our line? Now, of course, even here, we haven't put in this, we put the asses have been found. We didn't really write anything here. And of course, this is going to be changed. Right, so we don't know what that is yet. I'm not really sure what to do with this because there's so much here in this but the father being concerned, because in chapter 9, remember, before he goes to Samuel to find Samuel, right, it's in verse 5, 9 verse 5, when they would come to the land of Zuph, right, which is the honeycomb. And Kelly made a comment on the video regarding that. So it's kind of a long story, but there's this guy named Raymond Hitchcock who lived in Clearwater, BC, and he was a beekeeper. And he lived right on the main road going through Clearwater, which now the highway doesn't go through Clearwater anymore. On our way to Silver Hills, my brother David knew him. Anyway, he was an Adventist of sorts, follower of Herman Owen. I don't know if you know who Owen was. I think the Rabanskis actually inherited his library or something like that, his papers or something. But anyway, Raymond Hitchcock. Yeah, so Raymond Hitchcock was a follower of Owen. So Dwight knows about that. But he was a very eccentric old man, and he had the beasts of Revelation painted on his wall. Anyway, when we were moving to Silver Hills, our vehicle broke down on the way to Silver Hills. We were going through Clearwater, and we ended up staying at his place. And it was a long story about all kinds of stuff dealing with him. But Kelly just kind of said, Brother Ray, we called him, So there's a whole story regarding this Brother Ray. My brother David, my sister-in-law Angela, she was friends with Kelly Ross, and I guess Brother Ray and some other Adventists, they had like tree planting. I don't know if I remember all the details. Maybe Kelly can remind me about that today. But, my sister-in-law Angela was hanging around with Adventists, and it was just this whole bunch of stuff. Anyway, so the eating of the honeycomb, whether there's some connection with Brother Ray, I don't know. But we have, anyway, the eating of the honeycomb is obviously significant in, dealing with the manna. Is there anything else about that? So there's something about this part, this in 9 verse 5. And when they were come to the land of Zuph, Saul said to his servant that was with him, come and let us return. Now, of course, that word return, shuv, which becomes a really important symbol. Lest my father leave caring for the asses and take thought for us, right? So we're going to find in chapter 10 that when he gets to Rachel's sepulcher and the two men come, they're going to say, the asses have been found and your father's worried about you now. So the fact that this is connected with this honeycomb here, just there's something we're probably missing, is what I'm saying.
Hey, Brother Fredo,
Yeah, William,
I want to ask a question about the ass,
about,
about Islam. If if his father found Islam, right? You were talking about Jeff being, I mean, the preacher for American being the, you know, does does he find it um, at the formalization of the message?
okay,
If you
well,
know what I'm
so,
asking.
okay, well, yeah, so we're just, where we're going to place this, how we're doing this, I'm not sure. But so Jeff, so if we're going to take, 9/11 is this event, and then we're going to have, well, the asses have been found. The question, it has something to do with the understanding of Islam. Now, is it initially the understanding of Islam in regarding to 9/11 that's going to be found? Like, that's the question, is, are we placing these things at, 2004, for instance, or 2005, wherever we're going to say that they have the understanding that 9/11 is a parallel to August 11th, 1840. And is that a formalization of a message? Is there an empowerment that comes later? That I don't know. Now we have, two men here that he meets at Zelza. So maybe this represents the two waymarks, the formalization and empowerment in some way. Maybe this is this initial understanding about Islam being 9/11, and maybe the empowerment is something later on. The thing that's interesting, I want to go back to Zuf. So we had counted the number of days, 6766. And since that verse where he meets the two men at Zelza is going to refer us back to 1 Samuel 9, verse 5, where we have Zuf, if I count the number of days, well, the difference between Zelza and Zuf. So Zelza is 6766, right? And Zuf is 6689, the Hebrew number. So if I subtract 6689 from 6766, I get 77. Yeah, I've just got my calculator there. So it's 77 days prior to March 21st. Oops, why is it doing that? Okay, I've just got that wrong. Okay. There's what we want. Okay. March 21st, 2020. But the question, that's from 9, but there's this reference back to Zuf. And we're saying that story of him searching for the asses is the first angel's message in our bigger line, right? So that would be the history of Jeff prior to 9/11. So we're saying Saul being anointed, that's 9/11. We have this story at Zelza where the asses, he's told that the asses have been found and that his father's worrying about him. But this seems to be in response to prior to him going to find Samuel. So if we take this Zuf thing, so I don't know. You see how complicated this is getting. Zuf, which is H6689 in 1 Samuel. So we got this Zuf here, and if you subtract 6689 from 6766, you get 77. So is that significant? I think it is, but how do we address this? So we got Zuf and Zelza. There's a relationship between them. Now the date that I get is January 4th, 2020, because that's 77 days prior to March 21st. Is there any symbol that we would have for January 4th, 2020? Now that is a Sabbath, January 4th, 2020. So if we count from 9/11, we count these 6,689 days, we get to January 4th, 2020. We count 77 days more, we get to 6,766 days after 9/11. And then we have another 1,109 days to get to July 18th, right? Because, so this 6,766 plus 9, so it's, right? I typed that in correctly. Let's hang on. 6,766. See what I did. I just typed it wrong. Yeah, so 6,885 days. But there, it's just this thing about the concern of the father, that the father's worried about FFA, right?
I don't know if you understood my question or not.
Okay, well, I don't know. I thought I understood it.
I
But
was just asking if he knew about Islam before the formalization of the message.
You mean in 1996?
Yeah, 1996.
Well, he definitely did not know that Islam was the fulfillment of 9/11, because that hadn't happened yet.
Right.
But remember, in 1996, he had August 11th, 1840 lining up with November 11th, 1980, or November 9th, 1989, right?
Right.
So obviously he knew about Revelation 9, but he hadn't placed it correctly. The third woe, did not begin in 1989. It begins at 9/11 with the restraint of Islam. But so he didn't have that understanding. So we can say he was looking for the asses. That is, he was trying to understand these prophecies from the past. But it's not going to be till after 9/11 that this understanding is going to come about. And Jeff's not going to be the one that finds it, right?
That's right. That's right.
Okay. So that's kind of the point, I guess, is that the asses are going to be found, but it's going to be other people that find them. And in every case, not just initially with 9/11, but even when it comes to July 18th, that's not going to be Jeff discovering these things. So how we place that on a line, especially when we're going back and we're looking at chapter 9 and we're saying, well, that's before 9/11, that somehow this connection with Samuel is something that happens after 9/11, and Samuel's going to be directing. That is, at 9/11, we would say that the movement is anointed, or Jeff is anointed, or something. The message is anointed, however we want to look at it.
Okay, I'm just trying to get it straight in my head.
Yeah, that's good. So any thoughts on what this can mean, that the father's concerned about the son? I mean, obviously, we can refer to God in our history, but is there some place that we mark this? Like, what particularly does it mean? So one thing is we can relate it back to the story of Joseph as well, right?
Okay.
Okay. So when we get related back to the story of Joseph, we have Jacob, who's, well, first he's worried about his sons, right? He's going to send Joseph out to find them, but Joseph is going to end up being sold into slavery, and he's going to be sold to the Ishmaelite traders, right? So we have this connection here with Islam as a symbol. Of course, we know in the story of Joseph, we have the prophetic mirror dealing with the 11 and the 17, the 22, and of course, then July 18th, 11 times 17, and 1117 is the 187th prime number. So you got that 187 there, 11 times 17. So a lot of symbols, but how exactly to place them is, the father. There's something bothering me. And his thought, and take thought for us. And then chapter 10. What shall I do for my son? What he's going to say. Okay. And they're going to use the word sorroweth in the King James. Here, I'll just show you what I'm looking at. Okay, so here's 10 verse 2. So the asses which thou wentest to seek are found, and lo, thy father hath left the care of the asses, and sorroweth for you, saying, what shall I do for my son? In 9 verse 5, when they would come to land of Zuph, Saul said to his servant that was with him, come and let us return, lest my father leave caring for the asses, and take thought for us. Now that word thought is the same word anxious or sorrow, right? So you can see it's 1672. So it's the same word. We also have here, he's going to use this word come, halak, which we've seen other places, common Hebrew word, means come, go, went, the Hebrew number 1980. And, I've associated that with the year of my conversion in August 11th, 1980. So here it says, the asses which thou wentest to seek are found, right? So you can see there's that word wentest. That's the same word, halak. Go, went, come, wentest. Not a word, we don't usually say wentest. And again, you can see there is this sorroweth right here. And also this word care, dabar, which is similar number, but not related. Da'ag, so be anxious. The care of the asses is left. Natash, the father has left the care of the asses. That means he's no longer thinking about them, but sorroweth for you, saying, what shall I do for my son? Well, what about this sorroweth here? So in Genesis 35:19, Rachel died and was buried in the way of Ephrath, which was in Bethlehem. So this is just dealing with Rachel's sepulcher, right? I'm just seeing if there's any symbols here. Zelzah is first mentioned, Joshua 18:28. The asses are mentioned in different places. But let's look at the dictionary here, Zelzah, or Da'ag, pardon me. So I wanted to look up, not that, I wanted to look up Zelzah first. Okay, that's there. Okay, and then what shall he do for my son? That's a common word, so that's not going to be any help. The asses, you see that in Genesis 12:16, verse 22, dealing with Balaam's ass. Genesis 49:11, blessings. They're dealing with Jacob's blessings on his son. Anything else? I mean, I'm sort of stuck here and trying to figure that if there's something about this father sorrowing.
I think we may have to leave it for just a minute and come back to it.
Okay. Yeah, because it's really bothering me. Okay, so we got that part of it. At least we know about that. It's in our minds. Now, then when we look at this part, then thou shalt go forward from thence. Thou shalt come to the plain of Tabor. There shall meet the 3 men going up to God, to Bethel, one carrying 3 kids, another carrying 3 loaves of bread, and another carrying a bottle of wine. So we could, with these, there's just, because altogether you got, 3 men. So the 2 with the kids, exactly, how he's carrying these 3 goats, I'm not sure. Lifting, so advancing, so it could mean he's probably not literally carrying them. But another has with him 3 loaves of bread, and then this bottle of wine. So they will salute thee. And we looked at salute, right? That means asking peace, right? So shalal shalom is what it is in Hebrew, and give thee 2 loaves of bread. which thou shalt receive of their hands. So even though there's 3 men and the one man's carrying 3 loaves, they are giving the loaves of bread to him, and he's going to receive those loaves of bread. Now, if we go back to chapter 9, remember they're going to say, was it here? Yeah, the bread is spent in our vessels. Okay. So we took that as being what? In 9 verse 6.
If the bread is spent, doesn't that mean that they have no more word of the Lord?
Right. And so we're going to say that in the 1990s, as you know, people are studying, there's something missing, right? We've studied ourselves out, so to speak. Even though God has been giving us light, there needs to be a further revelation that's going to bring us farther, right? And that's going to be 9/11, right? 9/11 opens up a whole bunch of understanding. So the fact that that Saul's going to be given 2 loaves of bread, we say that this refers to the charts in some way, right?
Agreed.
So, I mean, if we're going to say, we're going to take these events and we're going to place them, then this here with Tabor. So we got Tabor. It's going to be this next one. One thing that's going to happen is he's going to be given 2 loaves, which we would say has to do with the charts. Now, as far as this history is concerned, in this movement, we're going to first have the understanding of 9/11, right? That it's fulfillment of August 11th, 1840. And then we're going to have an understanding of the 2520, correct? That's how we studied it.
I would say so, yeah.
Now, of course, that's going to give a further understanding once, we have the 2520. We had the charts before, and I'm just trying to find out exactly where we got the charts, when we got the charts, exactly when they're first going to be mentioned. So I'm going to just do a search here, and I should actually have this kind of stuff memorized. So, I mean, in 1843, they are going to mention let me see. Now that's 1840. I don't know why I said that. Okay, let me see what this says. I want to just look in those a lot of folders. Yeah, the future newsletters. Where's that folder? I can't find it on this computer. Okay, so whatever year that is, when they're first going to have the charts, I'm not sure. So it's something we're going to have to sort out. Okay, so in this line of the signs, we're going to say that Tabor is these 2 loaves. So we're just doing this line, I guess, first. And then now when he's going to come and to the hill of God, where's the garrison of the Philistines? Would that be the second angel arriving, where he's going to then prophesy?
Could be.
Okay. So in the history, like right now, we haven't drawn at the bottom, but just if we were going to say that the asses have been found is going to be the 2004 Ozone, Arkansas meetings. The 2 loaves are going to be connected to the 2 2520s, maybe even being found, like let's say 2006, or however Jeff looked at it, 2005, 2006 in there, that you're going to have the 2 2520s. But where would he be prophesying? Where would the Spirit of the Lord come upon him and he prophesies? We're going to say that's the second angel arriving. So we're just putting these in order on this line. Spell prophesies. So, I mean, these are just kind of shorthand, just markers for now. Does that make sense that that's the second angel arriving or not? There's some other way to do this. We could even have that these signs and Saul being anointed, all these are attached to the first angel's message. Maybe the first sign is the first angel's message. The second sign is the second angel arrived. The third sign is third angel arrived. So I'm not sure what to do, right? It's just doesn't really make sense to me that the second angel arrived and Saul prophesying, but maybe that's just the limit of my understanding. Now, so one way is we could say we have the lines of the signs, and then we're going to have the next event, right? So these signs are going to be fulfilled. I don't know how to do this, because then you're going to have the 7 days, that fourth sign. So that doesn't really fit. You know, maybe in the line of the signs, we have some other way to deal with these, maybe. I don't know. And then when we have this test, right? This test, where do we place that? Because he's gonna mention that 7 days of Gilgal. Now, so we're going to see these signs being fulfilled, right? So first he's going to be given these signs, and then it says, and it was so that when he had turned his back to go from Samuel, God gave him another heart, and all those signs came to pass that day. And when they were come thither to the hill, behold, the company of prophets met him. Now, they're going to say those signs were fulfilled, but they're not going to talk about how the other ones were fulfilled until the third sign, when Saul prophesies. And I know this is probably not a very exciting video, but you can see the process, at least, of what we're trying to do here. I'm not really sure. There's so many symbols, but maybe there's something that we can pick up on that's going to help us here. Now, we looked at 10:5 quite a bit, and we could see that was related to the symbol of the 10th day of the 5th month. So do we put these prophecies and then show their fulfillment? See, here's what I would rather do. So even though we have like Saul anointed, we're just going to leave that out. See, I would put Zelzah here. That's what I would do. Okay. And I would put Tabor here. Now, and then, well, here you're going to have the hill of God, right? So we say the hill of God is Gibeah, right? Is that what we're saying?
Is the hill of God Gibeah or Geba?
That's the question. Yeah. Okay. So
I'm thinking it's more Geba.
Okay. Yeah, because it says the garrison of the Philistines was at Geba.
Right.
Okay. So we're going to say that this is Geba. Oops. So we got Geba here and the prophets. Right. That's where he's going to meet them. So these are the prophecies themselves, but they're going to be fulfilled. Right. Now, the thing that they're going to, in describing this, he's not going to go through and explain again that he then came to Zelzah and this happened, and then he again came. It's just being told what's going to happen when he gets there, and they were fulfilled. So we're going to see that when he turns his back on Samuel, right? He turns away from Samuel. God gave him another heart, and all those signs came to pass that day. So these signs came to pass. Now, of course, we have the signs 226, which is 622 backwards. We have a fulfillment of a prophecy. So when were these signs fulfilled, I guess? Now we can say, well, here are these prophecies. That is, Jeff said that July 18th, that everything that was studied before came to come together on July 18th, right? All of these truths. So can we say that these prophecies are pointing forward to what's going to happen later in connection with the understanding of July 18th. Now, if we're going to say that those signs came to pass that day, when is that day? So all those signs,
Is it the day that Saul is returning from his time with Samuel?
yes, but that's definitely correct. But I'm saying, when is that day in our time?
Okay.
So if we're going to say that signs were fulfilled, where would we place these signs being fulfilled?
Would it be July 18th?
Maybe, but I don't know. It could be earlier.
Well, in this on the line of Saul,
Yeah.
does he represent anyone that's going to be able to note, accept, or see the arrival of the third angel's message?
Okay. Repeat that.
Does Saul represent anyone that is able to accept the arrival of the third angel's message?
You have to tell me what's more under that question. I mean, the arrival of the third angel's message in Millerite history is October 22nd, 1844.
Correct.
Are you referring to that literally, or you're just saying symbolically?
I'm saying symbolically.
Okay. So what would it be symbolically in our history? Is that what you're saying?
Well, our understanding has been that Future for America was raised up to restore the first and the second angel's message to the understanding of those that would study.
So to understand Millerite history, particularly the fulfillment of the first and second angel's message in connection with the parable of the 10 virgins,
right,
and how it relates to our history, it's often really forgotten by people in the movement. Seems to even be forgotten by Jeff presently, that he really doesn't understand the repeat of history. Like, there's lip service given to it now and then, but it's not really applied. Okay. So go on.
Okay. So what I'm looking at in the line of signs, here is Saul. He reaches a point. He knows prophetically that certain things are to be accomplished, but he is unable to participate in the arrival, formalization, or the empowerment of the third angel's message.
Yeah, just like William Miller didn't.
Right.
Okay. And which, is, I mean, if we believe that Jeff is a parallel to Miller, I don't see how we could be following him now. Now, it is true that people in the past would say, well, Jeff's going to eventually, step out of the way, so I'm going to be the one, that's Mark Bruce, or even that other guy back in 2012. Can't think of his name. I always forget his name. It's a weird one. But, people have done this, right? Parminder's going to do the same thing. They're going to take Jeff's place as the next messenger, right? But we know that happens. But it doesn't happen by self-appointed people. And we don't believe it's actually a person anyway, right? We believe it's a message. So the point that you're trying to make with all this, go back again. So are you dealing with like the 2 loaves, that he gets just 2 loaves, but not the third? Is that part of it?
Would you repeat that, please? I'm sorry.
So are you saying like he gets the 2 loaves, but not the third loaf?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, and I would think that would definitely be correct, in that sense, with the 2 loaves. And we can see, of course, this distinction because with Jonathan getting 1,000 of the 3,000 and Saul getting 2, and we see that Jonathan relates to a message that's going to be attacking the Philistine garrison.
Right.
And we would say that that was the message related to the chronology back in 2018, 2019 that undid Parminder's premises. I mean, the whole thing that really bothers me about all of that is how little it was understood what was happening. That is, I mean, I didn't fully understand at the time exactly what was happening, but we should have figured it out by 2019. And we didn't really, when we started picking up the July 18th date, I mean, in a sense, Jeff would say, well, Parminder had November 9th, 2019. We have July 18th, and this is going to be this battle between this, the prophets of Baal and Elijah. But it wasn't really understood what July 18th was about. That is, it wasn't being examined, the whole thing about time setting. The movement wasn't looking at it. They were just in opposition to Parminder, but not really understanding what the issues were. And of course, we start to sort those out more after July 18th. I mean, I sort of knew because it was quite clear that November 9th wasn't going to be what they were predicting it to be. But exactly what we were doing with time setting, why we were setting a date for the destruction of Nashville. So that's not being examined before July 18th. And it's not going to be really examined after July 18th by the majority of the movement. I mean, we're going to grapple with it, but most people are just either going to reject July 18th outright and have symbolic use of numbers and all of that. And then you have other people holding on to the date in word. We still believe July 18th, but they have no understanding of it, which always really annoyed me. It's like, well, you say you believe in July 18th, but you don't even know what it is. So, but the attack on the Philistines' garrison by Jonathan, that then is going to be taken credit by Saul, and then later on, we're going to have, other issues between Saul and Jonathan as well. But it's still, I'm not sure how this helps me understand how to put this all on a line. But here, if I put Zelzah, Tabor, and Geba as the first message, that is, this is the prophecy that these events, so we can say at 9/11, the asses have been found. That's going to be the announcement. 2004, we're going to have these two loaves, and we're just going to say that this is going to relate to, somehow this understanding of the message that's going to happen, whether we're going to put that 2004 or some other place. But we're now going to have bread, right? These two loaves of bread, this understanding of the first and second angel's messages, but not the third yet, right? Or at least he's not going to have part in the third. So,
right.
Then we're going to have this prophesying. So the question is, where do we place this prophesying as an empowerment of this message? Is that related to the prediction of July 18th, dealing with time? Or is there some other way in which we understand that? And if this is just initially the prophecy that are being put on this line, not the events themselves, if we're going to say that there's a second angel's message arriving, where would we place that? Are we going to deal with, oh man, there's just too much information for me right now to try to sort this all out. But, and then we're going to have this proverb, right? So the proverb is really interesting. Is Saul also among the prophets? Right? That is the proverb. And would we have to connect this in some way with FFA making a time prediction?
Yes.
Okay, because that's where what I would do with it. Okay, so it's
Well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
Is Saul now among the prophets? Is Saul prophesying? Is Saul setting dates?
Mhm. Yeah, that's kind of that's the parable or the proverb, right?
So does FFA represent the prophets? So again,
Well,
it's
it's the school of the prophets here as well, in a sense, right?
in a sense,
You know, because this is because isn't it that Samuel establishes these schools of the prophets?
well, that's one of the things I'm looking at as we're addressing things right now,
Yeah,
because the way in which Samuel established the school of the prophets.
right.
Now, initially, how many schools of the prophets were there?
3,
Two.
2. Okay,
Where were they?
I don't remember. I could guess, but
Kirjath,
wasn't
Jearim,
yeah.
and Ramah.
And where?
Ramah.
Rama. Okay, so Kirjath Jearim and Rama.
Now, later, 2 additional were established.
Mhm.
So, do these schools of the prophets then represent first, second, third, and fourth angel's message?
Possibly.
Why was a school of the prophet established at Kirjath Jearim?
Well, that's on the other side of the Jordan, right?
I'm just asking, why was it established there?
Well,
Now,
just because farther away from Jerusalem, and so it's just so other people have access to it.
if I've read properly in Spirit of Prophecy,
Yeah.
the school was established there because that's where the tabernacle was.
Okay, the tabernacles at Kirjath Jearim.
So I'll get this ready so we can look at this tomorrow.
Yeah, because there's something obviously important here about this prophesying and the prophets. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff we're still missing. I know once we see it, it'll all we won't be able to unsee it. But how to place this on a line, I'm not really sure. But I do know that okay, well here's another thing. So and one of the same place answered and said, but who is their father? We looked at this before.
Right.
Therefore, it became a proverb, is Saul also among the prophets? And the question was, well, what was this question actually asking? Now, I think about it because in the state about their father is going to be worried about them, right? Worried about Saul. And so there must be something in this connection with the father. And so there's different people try to interpret this, like what kind of leader can they have if they admit such a person as Saul into the company? That's what some people think. Some people say, who is this? Who is his father in the sense as who would have expected Kish to have a son among the prophets, right? So different people try to figure out what this actually means. Now, I think in response, is Saul also among the prophets, right? So, and you can see in that question, some say, well, is his like what's his source? Does he have any reason to be a prophet, right? So however you look at that question, Saul is not to be among the prophets. He's not really slotted for that, but here he is among the prophets, which would describe FFA, especially in its characterization of being opposed to time setting, so forth. So I think that would be something that we'd have to consider. So when we talk about the father here, but who is their father? I mean, obviously, God is the one that had been directing the movement, right? I think that's part of the question here as well,
Right.
because many people are questioning the whole leading of the movement, but yet these signs are given so that we can know that this movement is of God. Right? That's the way that we would look at it. So however we're going to sort this out, I don't know. But the one thing I can say is when Jeff began in 2023 to start writing again, I mean, it was very obvious that Jeff couldn't do that, that he can't come back and assume the mantle of leadership again, right? That he had, and it's not like trying to be mean or anything, but he had disqualified himself prophetically in the repeat of Millerite history to have that role, right?
Correct.
Yeah, there's no way that he could do that. And it was like, as a person, he could come back and say, yeah, I'm going to be studying with you guys. But for him to be writing and then taking this role, well, I'm now the leader of the movement. Everybody has to accept what I'm saying. If you don't accept what I'm saying, you're going to be blocked. You're not going to be allowed to ask questions or participate. For lack of a better word, it's pretty crazy that people could accept that. It doesn't follow Millerite history. And if we believe that we're following Millerite history, we would have to have some rationale. Now, Jeff does have a sort of rationale. His rationale was, well, he had been deceived and misled all this time, and these were just all a deception. And now we're going to go back and pick up from 2012. And of course, that doesn't really work as a repeat of Millerite history. We don't have that happening with Miller. But we already had gone through all of this history of all of these dates, and yet he wants to retain July 18th as the first disappointment, which, if you're saying that's a parallel with Millerite history, was the first disappointment a deception? Was it based upon a misuse of scripture for William Miller to come to the spring of 1844? We would have to say no, that he was led by God to do that. So you can't have July 18th be a deception and also be a parallel to the first disappointment. It's just not possible. I mean, there's a lot more problems, just all the different doctrines that are coming about, such as the idea that we're the Philadelphian church, which doesn't work with anything that Ellen White says. So somehow we're going to have to figure out how to get this sorted out, and I'm not sure how to do it. But obviously, the exercise of drawing these things on a line is still going to be helpful, even if we can't quite get this done yet. And there's just so many symbols. So that's the other problem. We have so many symbols that point to our history within the structure of the 777, connected to July 18th. And so to say, well, this is an earlier history, I'm not quite sure that's the best way to look at it. There must be something that I'm missing. Any further thoughts on this? Because right now I'm going to have to think about a lot of this stuff. But when I was looking at it earlier, I thought, oh, this will just, I can just do this and this and this. But as we start to look in more detail, it really becomes clear that this is going to take quite a bit more work. So any final thoughts?
Okay.
You're going to get together, Dwight, you're going to get together just stuff dealing with the School of the Prophets by
Correct.
Samuel.
Now,
okay.
I want to correct one thing that I said. I said that the tabernacle was at Kirjath Jearim. The ark was at Kirjath Jearim.
Okay.
Now, I've always equated the two as being tied together. That was my mistake. And if I'm understanding it, Kirjath Jearim would have been to the southwest of Ramah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, yeah, and I was getting Kirjath Jearim mixed up with another place name. Just a bunch of jumbly long letters. Names are just a bunch of jumbly letters to me.
Well, in this case, if I'm understanding it right, this would have been the city of thickets, Kirjath Jearim.
Okay.
So.
Okay, well, we'll look at that tomorrow.
Okay.
Because we need to sort out these School of the Prophets things. So if you get that document together, then we can do that tomorrow. Tomorrow's Thursday, right? Yeah.
I think
So
so.
last study this week. Okay, well, let's close with prayer. The dear Father in heaven, we are thankful for the time that we've had this morning. We realize we understand very little. And so we ask for your Holy Spirit to continue to instruct us in a personal study. We know that you have something special to say to us, and we just ask that we can have open hearts to receive it. We know you are our Father and that you care for us. And we know that the whole purposes of prophecy is not to speculate upon the future, but to become in union with you, to have a faith and trust that we can know that you are leading us and that we can have confidence as we share truths with others in how we live our life and in the words that we speak. Watch over each person, bring us together again to study your word is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.